attention. So I will kick through. So as Dave says, my name is Paul C. Dwyer. I'm not going to dwell too much on this. If you have interest in finding more about my services profile or whatever, it's on paulcdwyer.com. Essentially, I'm an independent security GRC and cyber threat advisor. The sort of clients I have are government bodies around the world, law enforcement, military. I'm an advisor to NATO on encountering hybrid cyber threats, one of the only civilians involved in that sort of area. My client base tend to be from North America right through to the Middle East and other places. And what I help organizations do is deal with cyber threats, as well as actually understanding what those security threats are, the GRC elements of them, the legal aspects, the risk elements of them, and so on, and how to deal with that in their strategy, essentially around the cloud as well. So a lot of my providers, or a lot of my clients, would be cloud service providers who are looking to say, well, look, what are our customers worried about? What are our clients worried about? Because we have to shape our services, our products, and deliver that with that in mind. And I'm going to touch upon some of that today. Okay, one of the hats I wear is president of the ICTTF. The ICTTF is the International Cyber Threat Task Force. It's a not-for-profit group, and very quickly on that, all the bad guys tend to work as a network. They collaborate together, they share ideas, they teach each other, they exchange tools, they teach programming to each other and so on. And that's how effectively they run this underground economy of cybercrime and cyber threats internationally around the world. So what we did was we put together a group of the opposite of that. It's all the good guys working together. And at the moment we've over 2,000 cybersecurity professionals working together. We've infiltrated groups like Anonymous, we've had paedophiles arrested, all different variants of cyber threats related to cyber espionage, and represented in over 100 countries, and recently we just had a chapter open up in Indonesia. And it's an Irish initiative, but it's taken on an international perspective. We also have a portal at icttf.org. It's completely free, and you can go and visit that, join up at whatever level you are to learn more about these sort of risks, whether it's cloud-based, mobile security, social media, network, whatever it is. There's all sorts of experts up there. To bring the virtual world to the kinetic world, last year we ran an event, a cyber threat summit at the convention centre. We had supporters like Sierra come here today and Alice Campbell, and we had supporters like that who came along and saw this as a really good initiative to get people on board. It's tremendously successful, and this year it's been followed on. We've got the support again of Aircom. We also have ISIN, we have Cloud Arena and so on, so we've got Michael's support, we have Jennifer Ritchie, Dave's support on that, and it's going to be a 2-day event this year. And so we've international speakers coming over and so on. The good news is there's free passes if you contact Michael or Dave in relation to that, and they'll give you a code which will actually give you a free pass for the 2-day event. So enough on that. We'll talk now about the cloud and get to the subject matter. Okay, so when you go to these sort of cloud briefings, everybody goes, oh, cloud, Schnaut, I've heard enough of it, it's all about this, IaaS, PaaS, SAS, blah, blah. And you're trying to say, well, look, where's it going? What's the strategy? What is all this about? What's it really about? Is it going to be as big as everybody says, or is it just all marketing hype? You know, and that's a valid question, because we've all got fatigue from this, and I think there's even a new acronym around to get cloud fatigue, about listening to this buzzword put in front or on the tail end of every type of service that's out there at the moment. What I personally see it is, yeah, great, there's lots of different technology, lots of different flavors of different stuff behind it, and all the big providers are going to put that together. That's great. But what it is, it's actually a challenge, and it's an opportunity. And if we look at civilization, civilization has had really 3 years. We've had the agricultural societies, where we've grown things, we've lived off that, and we've got by. Then we had the industrial age, and then now we're in the information age. So if we look at the industrial age, we used to have to make our own power, to make flour, or to make whatever it was, and we had to actually rely on wind power, water generation, all those sort of things. And that was the limiting factor on the industrial age, was how much power could you get, how much could you create to create more of those widgets, to make more of whatever you made, and so on like that. In the information age, along came electricity, we plugged into the grid, everything expanded hugely, and things took off in the industrial age. When it comes to the information age, we made our own power. We ran our own data centers, we ran our own computers, our own servers, everything else like that. And pretty similarly to that, we can now plug into the grid. We can now expand, a lot like Vickers was talking about earlier on in relation to treating it as water, treating it as electricity, whatever. We essentially now have an opportunity to plug into something which is elastic and can expand to our needs and so on like that. So that's very interesting from almost an entrepreneurial point of view and a challenge and innovation, because you say, well, there's so many different things I could do. I can run businesses in different ways, and You know, so that's food for thought on that side. I'm not going to go through this sort of stuff because everybody here knows this sort of stuff about what are the return on investment benefits, what are the cliched sort of stuff now about why you would consider the cloud and why you would want to go into the cloud and operate within that. But what I do want to emphasize is this is a massive, massive opportunity no matter what business you are in. The statistics will say 240 billion by 2020, whatever. You take all statistics with a pinch of salt, but at the end of the day, this is inevitable. This is here. You need to look at how you're going to embrace the cloud, what strategy you're going to use, your clients, your own businesses, your partners, everybody that you exchange information with, how you actually run your business. If you're a consultant now that hops on airplanes and heads over to deliver consultancy across Europe and so on, you might like to be looking around, well, hang on, can I use cloud-based technology to deliver my service? Lots of different ways that you need to start looking about how you can use cloud to do that. So, in essence, the cloud is good and the cloud is inevitable. So let's look at that. There is a warning that comes with this, and when I go into advisor mode and I'm advising clients, if it's a large bank or a large enterprise organisation, globally speaking, they're saying, okay, we're looking at this whole cloud thing. We're talking with Microsoft, Dell, Salesforce, we're talking to all these good guys, and they're all telling us all about the technology and how great it is and how different they are than everybody else or how similar they are to everybody else, but you know, there's almost, the challenge for the guy on the board of directors, because this isn't an IT sale, essentially. This is a business sale, or it's a sale through the risk department of a business. Because it's the CRO that will make the biggest decision within the business about moving into the cloud, because they have to balance the risk. And they have to say, well, what is the difference in moving into the cloud now? Yes, my IT guys and IT director, my CEO can handle all of that area, but it's really, this is a business decision because I'm in the business of selling insurance or being a bank or whatever. I'm not an IT business and I want to know that I can operate effectively when I go forward. And there's also a lot of mud in the water. There's a lot of stuff out there about where's your data being held? It's, you know, you shouldn't use a cloud provider that's not based in Ireland, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, and all sorts of stuff. So there's a lot of ambiguity and a lot of stuff that needs to be cleared up. So this is one of the most important points, is that you can delegate, but you cannot abdicate your responsibilities in relation to governance, risk and compliance when entering the cloud. Now, I was at a recent cloud event with TechFire, and one of the stats that came up said something like 40% of people, their decision being held up and moving into the cloud was all around security and those sort of areas. But security is really about risk, because it's not about, well, is it going to be patched? Because, like one of the previous speakers said, we'll do the job better than you in relation to managing a data center and everything else, because that's the truth 99.999% of the time. They are going to do that. But what about the software piece? What about the governance, risk and compliance? The piece that these technology companies are not set up to do, no more than one of the big four accounting firms are to do and consult in this area, because it's that hybrid area between technology and between business processes and so on like that, and law that is very important. So if we look at what governance, risk and compliance is, this has been a driver within, you know, the market for a number of times in the States and so on, to push various areas, especially in relation to compliance, that when you stop operating in a silo, you realize much more efficiencies, you have much more cost savings. So let's park the cloud for a second and look at just traditional computing within an environment and so on like that. We have these business issues that every business is going to have. You want to be innovative, you want to collaborate, you've got a supply chain, customer services, consumerization, virtualization, cloud computing, blah, 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 blah. The list goes on. But you also have the impact of all this exploding information, increased regulations and so on like that. Now if I'm a CRO of a company, I've got a bit of a nightmare because I've got all these different laws and regulations and I'm not sure, am I complying with them, the Data Protection Act, Sarbanes-Oxley, PCI compliance, ISO 27001, the list goes on and on and on. So there's a challenge there for an organisation without even considering the cloud to go, this is a pain. And as Dave mentioned there earlier, some of the statistics going around, there's one statistic which is quite frightening. I think it was KPMG who said it was 1% of turnover to comply with just one act, which was the Sarbanes-Oxley Act for all companies that trade on the New York Stock Exchange. So this, take your mindset out of, say, Ireland where we do compliance light, right, and into a real regulated compliance environment like, say, North America, which are the companies we're trying to bring over here with Connect On and all those sort of things. They have eye-watering fines, the fear of God that they'll walk off in handcuffs and be brought off, because it does happen in other regions and other areas like this. So this is the most deadly serious aspect when large companies are considering going to the cloud. They are fearful of this for their own freedom, if you like. If they get it wrong, there can be massive impacts. So if we look at what GRC is, every business, we say the board of directors here, they have business requirements and GRC requirements. We call those the input drivers. Those input drivers are used to direct but also to monitor and evaluate your ICT strategy. So that's in a traditional sense. And what sort of things are they? They're things like ISO, PCI, business continuity. They're things I need to do for business maybe, if depending on my business. I also will have regulatory requirements like FSMA, SOX, whatever. The bottom line is there's over 400 information security related standards. So information security standards in relation to data, there's over 400 of them from 38 countries, comprising over 10,000 overlapping, and guess what? Conflicting controls. It's a nightmare. Right. So if you have to be compliant with the Sarbanes-Oxley Act and you have the misfortune of trading in Germany, the German data protection conflicts with Sarbanes-Oxley, and you're just going, how do you handle this? It's a bit of a nightmare. So you think of all this pressure, all this problem, all this money that's going into this, and it ends up that organisations end up working in silos. Because I've gone into advice companies and they'll have the guy who handles PCI compliance here, the lady who handles data protection here, the person who handles business continuity here, blah, blah, blah. It's all the same stuff. It's the information you're trying to control, you're trying to make sure that you're following legally and legislation and so on like that. So they follow this. One reason I have this slide in is actually Ireland is pretty cool at this stuff, at creating the standards but not necessarily enforcing them. And there's a standard called SWIFT 3000, a governance standard from the Institute of Directors and NSAI, which I believe will become the international de facto standard on governance, and there's a lot of other standards that come around that. So bottom line, and I am in turbo mode, forgive me, I hope you can keep up with me, but I know we're running out of time. Governance, risk and compliance drives the cloud strategy. That's the essence of it, because any business is going to make a decision. It's not going to be made down in the IT department. We like the flavour of this technology, or I get on well with vendor A, or whatever, blah, blah. That doesn't come into it. That decision is going to be a board level decision, and it's going to be made on governance, risk and compliance. So the top security challenges for most organisations are managing risks, proving compliance, secure access mobility and cloud computing. Any CISO you talk to, that's what's on his radar or her radar in relation to what they're trying to do with. So with these increasing regulations, this slide actually, you probably can't see from there, this is a list of all the different standards. 20% of IT time, according to Gartner, is now spent. Of IT time is now spent on compliance. Not from the compliance department, not from internal audit, not from risk. IT people who should be getting on with IT. So that's a big number, no matter what business you are, and that's a big challenge. So let's look at companies who have actually been a little bit ahead of this, and they've joined up this stuff, and they've said, right, let's do IT GRC. The IT Policy Compliance recently released a report, and they showed that 17% higher revenues, 14% higher profits, 18% higher customer satisfaction rates, 70% higher customer retention levels, blah, blah, blah. It's good when you pull this stuff together. You save money, you've less incidents, and you keep your customers happier, right? So it's an easy sell to the board of directors. If I have them in front of me and tell them, you should be doing GRC. And it's great even to see companies like, for example, ESB or Electricity Ireland, or whatever they're called now. I see that they have a title on some of theirs, being, IT GRC person. Lots of businesses are realising this and the efficiencies in joining this up and making sure that that dialogue happens. So, now onto the cloud. So people, when they consider going to the cloud, I think most organisations are considering when they get to that hardware refresh stage and they go, should I be going into the cloud now or spending lots more money on hardware for 5 years, or let's do the analysis or whatever. So all of this sort of stuff goes on. So is the cloud a silver bullet? Quite possibly. But it also comes along with its own warnings and its own issues. And I'm going to touch upon a couple of them. We mentioned things like regulatory compliance. What do we mean there? A lot of these laws, these 400 laws that I'm talking about, or regulations and so on, you have to be able to prove where your data is, how it's controlled, what it's doing, everything else like that. The problem with these sort of laws and regulations is they were written well before the cloud. So it's very difficult to actually prove compliance to an auditor and internal audit, and the onus is on you to do that. So there's a lot of subjectivity, there's a lot of confusion all around there, and the onus is on the board of directors at the end of the day. They cannot say, I was using vendor A, they do my compliance. Why? Because as I said, you can delegate, but you can't abdicate. And the bottom line, it stops with the board of directors in relation to all of these areas. Here's a frightening little paragraph that gets people's attention. The European Convention on Cybercrime, which Ireland has not yet ratified, but has signed up to, but most of Europe and America, everything has ratified this Convention on Cybercrime, states that ensure a legal person can be held liable where the lack of supervision or control by a natural person has made possible the commission of a criminal offence established in accordance with this convention. In other words, if your systems are compromised or used for a crime, a fraud, or anything within this standard, well then the directors can go to prison. Oh, that'll never happen. Google, right? Their directors initially went off in handcuffs, and I can tell you about the story afterwards over a coffee, whatever. We hear a lot about the US Patriot Act, okay? And some people should say, oh, it's no big deal, it's no big deal. Yes, it is. right? It's Ireland's biggest opportunity in the cloud, right? Because people, and one of the previous speakers spoke about, you know, working in the German market and across in Europe and so on like that. This is their big concern. After 9/11, Bush brought in this law that basically said that if you are an American organization, you're working anywhere in the world, America wants a jurisdiction to be able to access any data they want. So why are companies like Facebook and all those coming here? Not just for the tax breaks, because we do compliance light and make it actually a bit easier for them to operate here, and because we hand over information and also things like a lot of other countries do as well. I'm not bashing on it anyway. But are we, or is your organisation going to become a victim of collateral damage or an agent of a foreign government by providing this information? It is a fear factor for businesses entering the cloud internationally on that side of things. So, getting back to me sitting on a board of directors and I'm wondering, should I move into the cloud? I'm now going, what a decision to make. Will I be operating legally? What are the costs? What about the vendor lock-in? What about all these different issues that we've gone through? It's a big decision to ponder. I'm going to change gears slightly. I believe Ireland actually has a skills crisis and not a jobs crisis. Because in my day-to-day job, flying around, doing all these things around for these big companies around the world, you can't get enough people to work in this area. There's so many jobs, so many companies want to invest. You can connect on here today, obviously doing a great job on pushing that. 98 done a fantastic job over the years and so on like that. But the amount of jobs, the amount of investment. One client I know was looking to build a $200 million data center, and they just wanted to know that they were going to operate in some sort of environment. They wanted us to help pick the country, the infrastructure, all those sort of things. So I believe that there's lots and lots of jobs out there if the people have the right skills. And it's good to see what the National College of Ireland are doing around that as well. But I'm just going to take a slightly sidetrack here on this. Let's look at Ireland for a second in relation to the cloud. We're in the right time zone, we're right in the middle of everything. With the right geography from physically getting in and out of Ireland to cloud-based or ICT-based businesses being able to physically get into stuff. We're a neutral country, that goes a long way. We have the workforce, experienced and qualified. We have the tax rate, we're part of the European market, we have the track record, we do compliance light. We've got the NCR. Now that was just off the top of my head, and we also have, of course, Goldilocks. We have the right weather. Not too hot, not too cold. And it's all good, right? So we've got all these, and that list can go on to 100 different points. And it could be like death by 1,000 cuts, and I could sell Ireland to somebody about doing the cloud. Look at what Microsoft are doing. Look at what Google are doing. The biggest exporter in Ireland today is Google. Second is Microsoft. They're cloud-based and ICT companies. This is what's going to actually change Ireland and push this around. So you don't need a crystal ball to work out that the gang you want to be with and what you want to run with is the cloud. This is where all the business is going to be. Essentially what we're looking at is a gold rush. And you see the big names here today. We have Salesforce, we have Microsoft, we have Oracle. And they're the guys that are in the gold rush. They're all trying to create the intellectual property that will effectively own the cloud. They want to create that magic piece of technology so they're not all going, well, yeah, we do that version, that, we do it slightly different, we do it this way, we do it that way. They want to create that piece of intellectual property to do that. So they've got the big books, they've got the big money, $500 million on data centres, $500 million, filling them out, all that good stuff. Now, where's Ireland's opportunity? It's actually in the pots and pans, right? It's the complementary service that we can actually provide as a country, whether it's legal, whether it's marketing, whether it's training, whether it's the ICT base. It's the skills, those intelligence skills, that these companies need to support their activities in selling cloud-based services worldwide. So that is Ireland's golden opportunity as I see it. So in order to retain and create jobs, I believe that the industry, the country, that, if you like, needs to embrace this opportunity around the cloud and say, right, so I'm here with a green jersey on, I do very little business in Ireland. It's really just to push this opportunity to say, this is what I'm seeing in Europe, in the States, that Ireland has a unique position to try and do this. So how do we do it? We need a USP, a unique selling point, right? Now if I said to somebody, FedEx, right, they'll go, well, it absolutely, positively has to be there on time. De Beers, diamonds are forever. M&M's, chocolate that melts in your mouth, not in your hand. Liechtenstein, tax haven. What about Ireland? The world's first compliance haven. Right? Now this is a phrase that I've come up with that I really think we need to get behind and push as Ireland being an area that you can come that can operate with harmonised laws between the United States and Europe. And if you come here, the cost of compliance will be reduced. It's not something the government are going to understand or grasp and go, oh yeah, let's go this. It's something people that get up at 6:30 in the morning to be here at these events. So it's up to the industry to get behind this, lobby the government, do whatever you need to do. There's nothing commercial in this from the point of view of me personally, to get behind and say, this is our opportunity, this is how we sell Ireland as being a cloud provider. So thank you very much for your time.